Did we need another zombie movie? Well, probably not, but I'm glad we do, because Little Monsters, what was originally supposed to just come out in theaters, became a Hulu original. They bought it up, and so they released it in theaters very briefly, and now it's on their streaming platform. But should you binge it right away, or is it something that you can totally wait for? A failed musician in Australia who's not really totally fond of kids ends up going on his nephew's field trip to this petting zoo and mini golf place, and ends up in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. The story starts off actually fairly depressing because you just have several minutes through the opening credits of these two people just arguing and fighting and just totally unhappy. And while there's a little bit of slapstick comedy that happens through the actions, you're like, for me personally, I was hoping that that's not what was going to be the tone throughout the entire thing. But really what that's doing is just setting up one of our main characters. Dave is played by Alexander England, and he's just the washed up musician. His life's not really going anywhere, and he's straying. He doesn't want kids. I mean, he's just like, I don't even want to be there. And then when he ends up staying a little bit with his sister and his nephew, I mean, you really get to see that come out. I mean, he's just not cut out to be the father type material, at least at the moment. I mean, he's showing this 5-year-old kid just all kinds of violent video games and just, taking him to inappropriate things or at inappropriate times, and he doesn't think anything of it. Now, he has well-meaning intentions, so you don't bash him for that, but it's funny because you see at the beginning of the film how ill-equipped he is to be a father, or even to ready to be a father. And then we get to see progression throughout the film because, of course, of events. Lupita Nyong'o is the children's teacher, and she is phenomenal in this. We get to see her strength. We get to see some slight comedy, some very subtle comedy from her, and some singing too, which is also great. But she's just a joy to watch in this. I mean, she's a lot of fun. Her main focus is keeping the kids where all this chaos is going on around them from focusing on it. If you saw the trailer, she's telling them that, hey, this is just a game. We're just going to do this. We're going to play tag. And all those people out there, the ones covered in blood and just kind of drooling on themselves and chasing you slowly, they're it. And you don't want to be it. And so I appreciate the whole bent that the film takes, is that it's very kind of kid-centric, although it's certainly not kid-centric, but it's just taken a whole new, the crux of it, the group of people that we really care about in this scenario are a whole bunch of kids, because they're all on a field trip, and they're not the only ones there. I mean, there's a ton of schools on this field trip. And then we get the craziness of Josh Gad, and he is playing an American TV host who is there to film a special. And so these kids, I mean, it's kind of like a singular Wiggle. I mean, he's playing Teddy McGiggle, and it's so funny to watch Josh Gad in this. I mean, he does it so well. And the way that they have his makeup, because he's made up for TV, so he's very plasticky looking. I mean, it's kind of creepy. It's a little off-putting. And then he's pretty inappropriate too, which has its own set of issues, but it's also pretty funny. Now, the whole thing is really a comedy and a zombie horror with a little bit of music thrown in. I would not call this a musical, because you just have like what you would have in a soundtrack, except you just have sometimes some of the characters singing some songs, but it's for the benefit of the movie and not just as part of the device going forward. Does that kind of make sense? Like when I think like a zombie musical, think Anna and the Apocalypse. That's truly a zombie musical. This one just has some music in it that some people are singing, but it's not moving the story along. It's only 90 something minutes long, so it's a quick binge. It's fairly fun, and I caught myself laughing at points where I didn't expect to. And it wasn't like just those huge belly laughs. It was just more of those ones that you see something, or you hear one thing, or one action piece does something, catches you off guard, and you kind of blurt out a laugh. And that's what that was. And it was fairly sustained throughout, though. I mean, it had a good amount of comedy to it. There are parts where it drags just a little bit, and I don't think that that's a fault of like the comedy or something. It's just the way the story naturally happened, and it didn't make the movie seem slower. It was just this is kind of how it was. I love also the contradiction of the movie poster and what you see. I mean, you see Lupita Nyong'o, she's dancing and she's jumping up and she has her ukulele, and you see all these arms coming up from the bottom. And that's basically what the whole movie is. It's this giant misdirection by her for the kids to keep them safe. And it just adds, for me, I think, a different twist to this, because all the time that we see zombies, it's, you know, group A trying to get away from zombies and they're trying to get to some place. Well, that doesn't really change. And even in this, it's still, you have a group, but more often than not, the group that's trying to escape are a bunch of adults or a bunch of military people or just a bunch of lowlifes that yay, that person died, haha. But in this, they're kids, and so you're kind of rooting for them all to make it through. One funny thing, and I don't know the actor's name, but there is one of the kids, and this moment in class where something happens to him and he screams, and he's a chubby little kid. He reminded me so much of Chunk from the Goonies. That's instantly the vision that popped into my head when this little bit happened. Now, I didn't see that throughout, and some of the kids too, you're like, oh yeah, I kind of hope you do get eaten, because you're just not very nice. You're kind of bullyish. This is great for a casual watch, and it's not something overly complex, just something that you can, you can pop on or sit down and start streaming and enjoy. Especially if you have a section of the year that's carved out, like Halloween-ish or October for horror movies, or you just have a zombie-themed time that you watch stuff. I don't know, everybody has different watching patterns and different like little niches that they put throughout the year, and so this one would fit nicely. I think it's a great addition to the zombie genre, and it is a lot of fun. You have some really good performances. Lupita Nyong'o is spectacular. Josh Gad is off-putting and awesome as well, and then you have Alexander England, who he grows on you, and I really liked him. And then of course the kids. Some of the kids are just really good. The gore is not off the charts nasty or gross, but there is a lot of it. I mean, come on, it's a zombie movie, so what are you expecting? I don't know if this is streaming outside of the US yet on Hulu, but hopefully it will be, because it is worth the watch. There is sex, nudity, a whole lot of profanity, and of course a ton of violence. I give Little Monsters 3.5 out of 5 couches. So what is the best zombie movie for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.